federal court in Reno. If you missed it yesterday, there was a hearing on a preliminary injunction motion in an existing lawsuit that was brought by 4 environmental organizations against the Bureau of Land Management and Lithium Nevada over the Thacker Pass mine. So I'm here at Thacker Pass right now. This project would destroy all the land you can see around me to extract lithium for electric car batteries, something like 1 million batteries per year. I think this project is greenwashing. I think it's a distraction from real solutions, which involve reducing our consumption, reducing the amount of cars we produce and use, living in a simpler way, living with less energy. This idea that we're going to transition from one bad thing, fossil fuels, to another bad thing, lithium, electric cars, is a total distraction from what we really need to be doing. So yesterday in federal court, there was a hearing on this preliminary injunction motion, and the judge heard arguments from lawyers for BLM and the lithium company, as well as lawyers from the environmental groups. One development that occurred on Tuesday afternoon, jackrabbit down here crossing the road. One development that occurred on Tuesday afternoon is that a motion to intervene was filed in this case. And what that essentially means is that a new plaintiff is attempting to join the lawsuit. Those plaintiffs are the Reno Sparks Indian Colony and the people of Red Mountain, Atsa Kudaku Nuwu. Pardon me if I'm not pronouncing that quite right. Doing my best. Those two groups, people of Red Mountain is a community group of Native people from the Fort McDermott tribe and the Duck Valley tribe. And the Reno Sparks Indian Colony is a tribe located down by Reno and Sparks, as the name implies. They filed a motion to intervene in the case to essentially become part of the existing lawsuit, but they brought new arguments, and their arguments fall under the National Historic Preservation Act. And under that law, it's required for the federal government to consult with Native tribes before doing things like archaeological digs. That law was not followed in this case, and so I believe the lawyers who I've been speaking with believe Will Falk is one of the attorneys who's representing these new plaintiffs, and he believes that there's a strong case for a violation of the National Historic Preservation Act. Now, I want people to be clear that these laws are unfortunately not very strong. They say that consultation is necessary, but similar to the National Environmental Policy Act, you would hope that law would protect the environment, would prevent the destruction of places like Thacker Pass, would prevent the poisoning of water. That's unfortunately not the reality. And the same is true of the National Historic Preservation Act. That law doesn't actually say you can't destroy a place like this and dig up all the artifacts and potentially ancestors' bones and remains who are found here. That's not what the law says. It says that you have to consult. And to me, this is representative of how the legal system in our country is built to prioritize the interests of corporations above people, above land, above tribes. This is just the way it has been in this country for a long time. And, I think about this whole idea of consultation, and, personally, it makes me pretty upset. Hey, whoever's watching, I can't see your name there, but thanks for the comment. Glad folks are tuning in. This whole idea of consultation makes me very upset because what I think about is an intimate relationship with somebody. What if the law said that in order to have sex with someone, you don't have to get their consent, let alone their enthusiastic participation. You just have to consult with them, right? That is a law of rape. That is a law of sexual assault. That is a law of violation. that encourages violation, that allows violation, and that sort of disguises it behind this facade of consultation. Uh, we have to talk to the tribes, is what the law says. But if the tribes say no, we don't want you to dig up our ancestors, as is happening in this case, the government is not obliged to listen. Well, they're obliged to listen, but they're not obliged to do anything about it, right? And I just want people to recognize how messed up that is, how wrong that is, how morally outrageous that is, that the law, this colonial law, it was just striking me being in the court yesterday, how it's this colonial legal structure. There was no treaty signed in this area. There's no legal basis for uh, the state of Nevada, the Bureau of Land Management, claiming this land right here, besides, the doctrine of discovery and the right of conquest. Basically, that's the legal basis for the BLM claiming this land as federal land. This is Paiute Shoshone land, and this court, the idea that this court should have total jurisdiction in this sense in this area is pretty upsetting to me. Um, so, so the motion to intervene with those by Reno Sparks and people of Red Mountain was filed on Tuesday afternoon. And as I said, this is new claims brought into this courtroom. My perspective is we should use all tools that are available to us, even understanding that these tools are not necessarily very strong, that they're not a decisive way to stop the project. We have to use these tools because whether we like it or not, the court exists and it has power. And it's not the only power that exists, and that's why we're here on the site. That's why we're building our opposition, building our strength. You know, that's why we've been talking about direct action and and talking about building our own bases of power in the community among people who are opposed to this project. All the local people are almost unanimously opposed. So what is this democracy worth if people from far away can say, we're going to destroy this land, we're going to take this land, and all the local people say no, and they're overridden? That's not justice. That's, maybe you could call that democratic empire, right? That's injustice. So in the courtroom yesterday, what exactly happened? I want to go over what exactly happened. The first thing that happened is that the judge did not decide on the preliminary injunction motion that was brought by the four environmental groups. So the injunction that was filed several weeks ago to try and halt the archaeological digging on this site. The judge didn't decide on this. She heard the arguments from the lawyers on both sides, and she listened. She listened to their arguments, and she said, I will get back to you with a decision by sometime next week. I believe by the 29th. So we don't know what's going to happen with that injunction. We don't necessarily feel incredibly optimistic, but you never know. The second thing that happened was in relation to the motion to intervene that was brought by Will Falk, working with people of Red Mountain and Reno Sparks. And the judge said that she is going to look at that. She is going to look at that. She hadn't had a chance to read it in detail and to decide whether she would allow them to essentially join the court case to become a plaintiff intervener, I believe is the language. This is testing my legal understanding, but a plaintiff intervener in this existing lawsuit. And she expects to make a decision on that within, I believe, within the next several weeks. I think there's a pretty decent case there for defendant intervener status. There are going to be arguments due from the defendants, so the lithium company and the Bureau of Land Management, who want to build this mine. They will have to make their arguments by the 26th next week about whether or not arguing that if they're going to argue that these interveners should not be allowed to join the case, they're going to have to make that argument by the 26th and submit their arguments to the judge. Um, the attorneys for our side, for the opposition to the mine, are going to get a chance to respond to that by the next day. So quick turnaround for writing these type of legal documents and briefs. It's a lot of work to do this type of stuff. So, shout out and respect to Will and the other attorneys who are working to defend the land and do this type of stuff. It's not easy, and Will's doing it pro bono. He's not making a dollar from this, and I would guess that attorney for Lithium Nevada might be making $500 an hour. So, and that's not just courtroom time. That's prep time. That's research. That's writing the legal briefs and so on. So she's bringing in big money, and that's the way it always is. David versus Goliath story. If folks are watching, send a comment. Let me know how the connection is, how the audio is, if I'm coming through clearly. So the final part of the story is that if the judge does allow people of Red Mountain and Reno Sparks to join the lawsuit, to become plaintiff interveners, then the way this is going to play out in the coming weeks will depend on one or two different factors. So in order for the archaeological dig to move forward, the BLM has to issue a permit allowing the archaeological company Far Western to go ahead and dig up this place and desecrate the cultural sites out here, the sacred sites. So that permit is still pending. And one of the reasons it's pending is because BLM is still consulting with tribes about that archaeological digging. So what the judge told the BLM is that they must inform her if they're going to issue this permit, and if they're on a rush schedule and she decides to allow people of Red Mountain and Reno Sparks Indian Colony to join the court case, then she will begin to hear the arguments on this new motion to intervene, on the preliminary injunction request filed by people of Red Mountain and Reno Sparks on August 9th. On the other hand, if BLM is not issuing that permit imminently, then that will likely get pushed back until the week of August 23rd. So the bottom line for now is that things are not 100% for next week. We were looking at the 29th as possibly a D-Day on the ground here, possibly the day when the company would be coming out and trying to get started with destroying this place. It looks like it's likely that date is getting pushed back into August. That's not 100% certain. It's possible that 3 bad things in a row happen. The judge denies the motion to intervene from people of Red Mountain and Reno Sparks. That would be bad. The judge rejects the injunction from the environmental groups. That would be the second bad. And the third thing would be if the BLM issues the permit for the archaeological digging. Those 3 things would have to occur in order for the 29th to be the day that we're looking at going forward. And that we're looking at the destruction beginning out here at Pahimaha or Thacker Pass. So we're hoping that the hope is that 2 or 3 of those things will go in our favor, will flip in our favor, and that could delay things potentially significantly. We might get things pushed back into August, and if there's a positive outcome here, we have further delays. So, to jump back to what this means big picture, right? The legal system generally does not provide us with very strong tools to halt a project like this completely. The law is set up to benefit the corporations and to allow the destruction of places like this. The regulatory system is set up to allow places like this to be destroyed, to regulate and permit companies to release pollution, to use water, and so on. That's why they call them permits, because they permit the company to do these things. So we can't get it twisted. We can't forget that this system is stacked against us. And what we have on our side is justice. We have the moral high ground here, certainly, and we have each other, right? We need to organize and continue to build pressure and push on this issue. So the BLM has some power over this project, and especially the Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, has a great deal of power over this project. So over the coming weeks, we're going to be working to organize political pressure on the Secretary of the Interior to cancel this project, to protect this sacred site, to stand in solidarity with Reno Sparks Indian Colony, with people of Red Mountain, and with other tribes who may be getting involved. If anyone's listening who's involved in tribal government or cultural resources with tribes, get in touch with me, get in touch with Will, get in touch with Reno Sparks, because the more the regional tribes are involved in this, the stronger it's going to be. So we are going to have to take advantage of this time that we have gained. We can't just sit back on our laurels and rest. We can't just relax and take it easy. We need to keep pushing. And, this has got to be a collective effort. We're going to need people who are watching to help. And yeah, somebody's saying we got smoke from the wildfires. Absolutely. Big wildfires up in Oregon, not too far from here. So we've had smoke off and on for about a week. We're going to have to keep pushing. So if anyone wants to jump in the comments and shoot over any questions you have, I'm happy to answer some questions that people got at this time. If anyone's wondering what the situation is, what we can do, what the next steps are, anybody wants some clarifications around what's happening in the courts. I'm not a lawyer, so I may have made some mistakes in there. And if so, I'll try and correct those in the comments or in the description. But that's my understanding of what happened. Yesterday, being in a courtroom like that is confusing. Most of us walked out and went to the attorneys and said, "What just happened?" Right? Because there's a bureaucracy that can make it challenging to understand what's happening, and I understand that. For me, the reason I'm here, one of the reasons I'm here, the reason I originally came out here is because I wrote this book, Bright Green Lies. I co-wrote it with a couple of friends of mine, and we took a long, hard look in that book at the so-called green technologies that are being promoted as the solution to the problems that we're facing. We looked at wind turbines, solar panels, electric vehicles, lithium batteries, as well as other things like efficiency, recycling, green, compact cities, a number of these mainstream solutions, and we found a lot of problems with them. We found a lot of issues. What we found is that many of these things are green more in the sense that they're profitable than they're actually good for the planet. And that's certainly the case here. This lithium mine would destroy, in the end, if they get their way and expand, something like 28 square miles of habitat here. And perhaps even more importantly, would cut off migration from the Montana mountains to the north, the Double H Mountains down to the south here, the Quinn River Valley to the east, and the Kings River Valley to the west. This is a critical transportation migration corridor for all kinds of different species. It's genetic connectivity between all these different wildlife habitats, very important habitats. And when that gets cut off, you have impacts at the population scale. You have impacts on a broad scale over long periods of time. So if this mine is in place for 100 years, uh, that's a major impact to the wildlife, to the land, to the people, to the entire situation. Then you've got the impacts to water, 4.6 million gallons a day that this mine would use. You've got the impacts to the human beings, right? The sacred sites here to the indigenous people of this region, places where people hunt and gather, places where people pick different medicines. You know, this is sagebrush that I'm standing in right here. See, everyone? So, you know, there's a lot of first foods out here that people have relationships with going back a long time. And that will be cut off. You know, the local farmers and ranchers are opposed to this project as well, almost unanimously. They're really concerned about the water drawdown. They're really concerned uh, about the pollution issues, air pollution issues, several hundred trucks a day coming through, and all kinds of other impacts on their. One of those concerns being potential increase in violence. Um, when you have these major industrial projects, you tend to see uh, more and more workers coming in. Those workers tend to skew younger and skew male, and young men just frankly don't make the best decisions sometimes. I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate. I certainly can. You know, I didn't always make the best decisions when I was a younger man. I'd like to think I am doing a little bit better now. But you know, when you have these major projects with hundreds or thousands of workers coming in, you tend to see an increase in hard drugs. You tend to see an increase in violence in the community, violence against women and children. Um, you know, you tend to see all kinds of issues like that arise. And that's a major problem for the local communities. You know, my bottom line is that we're not going to save the planet by destroying places like this. We're not going to save the planet by blowing up mountains, using billions of gallons of water, you know, using all these chemical inputs from the tar sands and the fossil fuel industry to build millions upon millions of electric cars. That's not a path towards a better world. It's a path deeper into the ecological crisis that we're already in. And it's it's really troubling to me because yesterday in the courtroom, the lawyers for the defendants read some arguments and made some arguments that, you know, lithium is important for national security. Lithium is important for environmental protection by mitigating global warming. And, you know, it's essentially this very benevolent thing. It's a strategic mineral and it's going to help us protect the environment. That, you know, that building this mine would actually be good for the planet. And this to me is greenwashing at the deepest level. Because what people don't understand is that producing electric cars has a significant carbon footprint. And that's why, you know, organizations like the Center for Interdisciplinary Environmental Justice have done calculations and figured out that, you know, even if we electrify all the vehicles in this country, we're not talking about a major carbon emissions reduction. We're talking maybe 6%. That's not enough. That's not nearly enough. And that's why I say, once again, this is a false solution. This is a distraction from what really needs to be done, which is a major drawdown in the scale, the energy consumption, the wastefulness, the size, the destructiveness of our modern culture. This way of life is not going to continue. It can't continue if we want a living planet. We need to come to grips with that. It's not going to be as simple as simply swapping out what is under the hood of our cars and everything will be okay. That's not realistic. That's not based in reality. That's not based in science and data. The truth is, if we want to halt global warming and address this ecological crisis that we're in, we need to do a lot more. A lot more. For my part, I think that means we won't have cars There's a saying in Saudi Arabia that my grandfather rode camels. We ride in Mercedes Benz, and our grandchildren will ride camels. What they're acknowledging in that statement is the reality of peak oil, is the reality that the resource that they've depended on to generate so much wealth for their country is finite, and it's going to disappear. It's going to be gone. That there are ecological limits. And many people have a misconception that, life before cars was terrible, that everything was awful, that life was brutal and short, and nothing could be further from the truth. We live in an incredibly alienated, sick society. You look at the state of our world today, the state of our culture, the state of our communities, and it's not good. Drug abuse is rampant. The opioid crisis is killing people left and right. Other drug issues, mass shootings, mass incarceration, the rates of depression, the rates of anxiety, different mental health issues. We are living in a society that is shallow and sick. This is not a good way to live. And yeah, we may have access to Netflix whenever we want to watch it, but that really doesn't matter at all compared to quality of life, compared to the quality of our relationships, compared to the quality of our relationship with the land, with the other species and beings around us, with the water, with the air, with the mountains. This is so much more important than, what's in our bank account or whether or not we have a car in front of our house or not, right? So, on that level, our quality of life in this modern era, despite all these luxuries that are available to those people who can't afford them, our quality of life is lower than it has ever been in some senses. This way of life isn't making us happy, it's not making us fulfilled. And, I don't know about you all, but the times when I'm happiest in life are simple. They tend to be when I am outside, when I'm hanging out with friends and family, loved ones, people who I really like. And maybe we're sitting around a campfire, maybe we're hanging out on a beach somewhere, going for a walk in the woods, having a picnic in the park down by the lake. That's when I'm happiest in life. That's when I'm most fulfilled in life, right? It's not when I'm watching a YouTube video or I'm driving my car down the road. These things are not only unnecessary and frivolous, they do not feed the human soul. So I think that we need to recognize this. We need to be the adults in the room, and we need to be the people who are willing to tell the truth about, the lies, the greenwashing around lithium projects like this, and all sorts of false solutions. We need to be the people who are trying to move society in the right direction. So I think I'm going to leave it at that this morning. I appreciate people tuning in to watch. This has been an update from Thacker Pass, which in Paiute is called Pahimaha. That's the original name for this land. If you want to go back and check out the beginning of the video, I talked about updates from yesterday's court hearing and the situation, what went down, what the different elements are that are playing out. We are holding a training this weekend here at Thacker Pass at Pahimaha. If you're interested in that training, shoot me a message, get in contact with me, or check out the Protect Thacker Pass website for more details on how to apply to be a part of that training. We need people with more skills for effective organizing and resistance, and hopefully I'll see some of y'all out here. So thank you very much for the support. This whole campaign is a collective effort. This whole campaign is the cumulative result so far of all the people who are contributing. From somebody who donated $5 to the fundraiser to somebody who comes out to camp for a day and spends their time washing dishes or learning about the issues so that they can communicate with their communities. To other people who are organizing, who are reaching out to tribes and native organizations, who are conducting training, who are helping spread the word online, the lawyers in the courtroom, the people who are speaking up and writing articles, the people who are doing photography and videos. the supporters who are helping spread the word in all kinds of different ways. This is truly a collective effort. So, I have so much respect and admiration for everyone who's contributing to this. It's impossible to do this type of thing without a support network. And from the beginning, Will and I set up camp out here on January 15th. So it's been over 6 months now. And, people may have just seen the two of us here on site, but the reality is we had a support team back home helping with our websites, helping with fundraising, helping spread the word. We had people bringing some supplies out to us, our families being behind us and supporting us, the moral support that we were receiving from all these different people, the folks who come out and help hold down camp so we could go get a shower or, take a break for an afternoon. Yeah, somebody mentioned the artists and musicians who have been making incredible art for this campaign, stuff that just cuts right to the heart of it, that cuts, through the mind games that these companies try and play with us, the propaganda, and goes right into our emotional center. Yeah, I just have to send all my respect to everyone who's been a part of this. And then, I have to send my ultimate respect to the land here, because the land is what sparked this movement. The land is what's responsible for this movement. I heard a quote years ago from somebody who was defending rainforest in Australia, and the person said, "We are the forest given consciousness defending itself." That's the situation here. This is where we come from. This is what we're made up of, is the same carbon atoms, the same nitrogen, the same phosphorus that's in these sagebrush, the same water that flows through these plants, that falls out of the sky, that runs out of these springs. That's what we're made of. We're part of this land. We're all part of this earth, and you know we would not be here without the land, without the blessings from the land. So, the ultimate respect, the ultimate allegiance, the ultimate love has to go to the land for supporting us all, for making life possible. And, particularly in this case, this campaign was started because I came out here and had a dream, and the land gave me a dream. And in that dream, I dreamt about this resistance coming together, and decided to try and follow that dream. And that's not from me. That dream came from outside of me. That dream came from the land, or perhaps from the land that I'm a part of. So the ultimate respect goes to the land and to this place. And we're gonna fight as hard as we can. We're gonna try and stop this thing. So I'll close off this video. Thank you for watching, everyone. And here's what it looks like up at Thacker Pass, Pahimaha, this morning.